CS greetings, CSGOers. I'm Extremes. And this is CSGO Deeper, where we go deeper. She cried.
That's what she said.
Yeah, well, certainly starting off with some pretty interesting intros these days.
Yeah, well, I don't mind being risque. This is uncensored, and uncentered, and unhinged, all of those things. So I'm quite okay with that. And the other person that I'm quite okay with...
Wouldn't expect anything less.
Well, one at a time, boys, one at a time. Let me introduce you first. We've got Phantom, who's looking... The facial expression there says that Halberd said something to you at Mega 8 that sort of took you by surprise.
Yeah, and I was thinking, I'll just slit your throat after the event. It's all good. I don't care.
Whoa! Mad escalation. And of course, joining us as usual is Profeci. Looking good there, Prof.
Oh, thanks. Greetings.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been an interesting couple of weeks since we last did the video, but I don't think I'm going to be dropping any bombs that I want to be slitting anyone's throat yet. That's probably later in the year, I guess.
Oh, Phantom coming in with a bang, or with a quiet assassination attempt. One of the two, I guess. But
Well, you know how it is.
yeah, well, I mean, you're a Quake player originally, right? You guys don't do sneaky. It's just like through the front door, flattening the front door with a railgun.
Exactly. There is no door.
Because you just double jumped around it.
Precisely.
Anyway, I love Quake. I love that so much. I especially love juggling people with the rocket launcher, you know. Boop, boop, boop. Beautiful. Love it.
There's no better feeling, especially when you can connect a really good mid-air. There is no better feeling in a gaming experience. I can tell you that much.
Yeah.
Unless you're on the opposite side, then it's probably the worst feeling in the world.
Oh yeah.
Because the guy's just styling on you. You're just like, I hate this situation.
Must be hacked. Must be hacked.
Yeah. Just knows, boys. Just knows.
Yeah, that's what you always say in matchmaking, eh?
That's what everybody says in matchmaking, when a guy can just, randomly peeks the most obvious spot that you're sitting in. And it just knows.
Just knows. How did he know?
Gotta be.
Well, talking about knowing, we know a thing or two about what's happened recently on the international scene and on the local scene. So we're going to talk through a little bit about what's actually been going on in terms of events, what's coming up. And let's looking back first, I guess, without standing upon the title of one of my own videos, I guess, would be the Starladder results. Let's talk about some of the things that happened there. You want to kick us off there, Prof?
Yeah, I mean, it was, I think, a bit of a surprise that FaZe won. Certainly, they played well enough to beat Astralis. But in general, I think that not many people expected FaZe to, make 2 finals in a row, particularly because they looked so shaky in the groups. But I don't think many people expected them to win this early. Like, the amount of firepower on the team, I think, would have just guaranteed that they win at least one event this year. But I don't think any of us expected it to be their second event. Yeah,
not at all. I'd agree with you there. And I also didn't think that they really played their best at this event compared to how they played at IEM. What's your thoughts on that, Phantom?
Yeah, I mean, if you look back, I think it was G2 that won one major, and then they just fell apart completely. They just, the wheels of the bus literally just came off entirely. And I think with FaZe,
they won a major, right?
Well, it would be Envious, which is actually most of G2 now.
Most of G2, yeah.
Yeah, and if you think now with FaZe, I think plays in their favors. They've got a team of some seriously experienced campaigners, and I think that's what helped them in the Starladder series to actually come out on top over Astralis.
Yeah,
I think.
Go ahead.
Go for it.
No, I think it always boils down to that, and that's like they managed to bounce back nicely from their group stages and just carry that momentum all the way through, dude. And I think I watched the finals and I think they played really, really well. Astralis had opportunities to run away with it, but unfortunately, I think FaZe just played it better on the day.
So what do you think about that situation on Inferno when it was actually 14-10 to Astralis, Prof? it looked like it was pretty much dead and buried. Astralis were going to walk away with it, and then out came the double AWP, which tilted the fuck out of you, me, and Yanko, I think, and yet they still won.
Yeah, like it was more like the thing about the double was like it was so risky because like if it goes wrong one round basically, then you're basically just money screwed for the rest of the round. So it was such a massive risk, and they somehow just made it work. And a lot of people like going on about how well Nico played in the final, but I don't think that he was actually the best player. He certainly did a job, and in the final map he picked up his frags, but I don't think that his frags were as impactful as it seemed. Like, yeah, he got a lot of them, but it didn't really ever feel like he was doing massive amounts of work there. It felt more like a cohesive team effort, which is actually what you want. I mean, yeah, it's fantastic to be able to ride a superstar like that to a victory, but you sometimes, like especially in the final, if the whole team pitches up, you know that it's much better overall for your likelihood going forward, because there's no like massive drop off from a star that could potentially be coming down the road.
I've actually fully agree with you. If I think back now, I think there was only one round where Nico himself, I think, contributed to the team actually winning it, where he got like 2 or 3 good entries, and then the rest of the team followed up to finish off the last 1 or 2 guys. The rest of the time, and I think the one map he also had a really, really bad start. He was, I think, 4 for 17 at one point.
Yeah, that probably would have been, I think it was Mirage that he started off like.
Yeah, he
was a dumpster.
Half,
yeah, it was.
It's actually interesting if you talk about Mirage, because Mirage is the map that we would have expected them to win as FaZe. You know, Astralis tend to scrape through narrowly on that map when they do win, and it's not one of their stronger maps. I mean, it's in history, it's one of Carrigan's strongest maps as an individual player, as an in-game and as an in-game leader. So you look at FaZe and go, okay, well, FaZe should take this, Astralis should take Nuke, and then we should see Inferno, but it actually worked out the other way around.
Yeah, Astralis has been running that running Nuke. I don't know, like I've just for some reason I've never been that confident watching Astralis on Nuke. They seem to have real struggles on the T side at times, and it obviously doesn't help that they have this thing where they're pretty slow starters. And Nuke just seems to feed into that very, very badly. Like if they get off to a slow start, like in Nuke you're sitting like 8-1 down before you know what you're doing, and I mean, at that point, the round's all but or the half is all but lost. So it obviously did help that FaZe won both pistols, but I don't know. I'm not the biggest fan of the way that Astralis currently is playing on Nuke.
Yeah, the Nuke is looking a bit shaky there. But yeah, sorry, Phantom, jump in there. I can't see your face, man. I can see your face, but I can't see your face.
No, just thinking back, I think people probably pinpoint and say, like, Carrigan used to play with Astralis, and he knows how the players think, and he knows what they're going to do, and he can probably expect more than what the rest can from playing against them now. But I honestly don't even think that's what carries weight with FaZe versus Astralis, even in that final. I think for me, I think Astralis play the new Nuke too much more like the old Nuke. The map is quite a bit different. There's some of those changes are quite big, even though it's obviously the same core and fundamentals. But I think when the new Nuke first came out in CS:GO, people were exploiting people's lack of map knowledge on it. You could just rush top and probably just breach it and crush it and just take control of top so easily. You can't do that anymore. And it comes down to, I think, also how it used to be in 1.6, where it's so easy to hold the map as CT if you have guys in the right spots with the right guns. So I don't know. I think Astralis might just maybe need to change their approach to it. I don't know if they've adapted as well as the rest of the other teams have.
Also,
yeah.
if you look at their, let me just get this in quickly.
No, you can go ahead.
Look at their performance on Nuke versus FaZe in the previous final at Katowice, the only thing that got them across the line was an insane 3v1 clutch with no armor from Dupree. Otherwise, they would have lost that game as well. And I'd have to agree with what you're saying there, Phantom. Their approach is very obviously on the CT side. And I mean, if we look historically at the team when it was still Dignitas became TSM, they had a very sorted CT side and they had no T sides whatsoever at that stage. Carrigan brought them T sides and Glaive has built upon that, but it doesn't seem to, from what I've seen, translated as well to this map as we see very sorted T sides from them on other maps, but here they don't seem to be able to actually chain their rounds together.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, for me personally, it looks as though almost as when people look at Astralis as nuke, and I know a lot of the international analysts have said that Astralis' nuke is pretty strong, but I mean, if you look at it, the teams that they're beating on nuke, yeah, they're running VP close, but I mean, just looking quickly at the last games on nuke, so okay, online they lost to G2 16-6. FaZe, they lost 16-6 as well. They beat Navi. Okay, we know Navi is absolutely trash at nuke, so that, in my opinion, is not really a worthwhile result. And they lost to Nuke again. It looks like online. They beat Heroic. They've beaten North. They've lost to VP. Right now, North and Heroic are teams that I think they should expect to beat. We know Navi is very, very bad on nuke. They always have been. So the fact that like they're dropping as many games as they do, I think it's kind of hiding the fact that they're like how competitive they are against VP, who's assumed to be the best on nuke. I think is hiding, in my opinion, at least, their relative weakness on the map at the moment. But I do agree. I think they are playing it like very, very old school on the map, and it's gonna cost them big time if they continue to do that.
Yeah. I'm sure they're probably even aware of it. I think they're still trying to figure out how to approach it against these other teams that have already adapted so well to the new map.
Yeah. No, like, I mean, it is only seemingly elite teams that can beat the one. Like, FaZe is a very, very good team. VP, when they're motivated, is a very, very good team. G2, well, I mean, okay, it's online, so we don't exactly know what's going on. But, I mean, that team, I think just the sheer power, the firepower on the team should do well on a CT side like Nuke. So, yeah, I don't know. It's a bit worrying for me the way they're playing at the moment, Astralis.
So if we talk about something I mentioned a little bit earlier, I didn't feel that FaZe played as well in this final as they played in the previous final, despite the fact that the previous final only had 3 days preparation, whereas here they had a few weeks. During the tournament itself, they showed some weakness, and if that stupid game against G2, which was one of the worst games of professional Counter-Strike I've ever witnessed, it was terrible. I don't know if you saw it, Phantom, but
no, unfortunately, I didn't.
Yeah,
game of 4 spies.
Yeah, a game of 4 spies. There were very few actual buys in the game, and it's basically okay. So now we've got a buy. They 4 spy against us. They beat us convincingly. Now they have weapons. Now we 4 spy, and now we beat them convincingly. Let's just like nobody get any gun rounds ever. It was a shambles.
I think it was round. If I remember correctly, it was like round 11 was the first time we saw a rifle versus rifle buy. It was just like, I just remember everybody watching the game going like, "What is this? Like this isn't even Counter-Strike anymore. It's just become an absolute horrible match to watch." So yeah, please no more of that.
Sort of reminds me of the final between Bravado and Ian at the Mega 8 event, where either team would win the pistol, and then the team that lost the pistol would win the following round.
Yeah,
it happened. I think it literally happened 3 times in that grand final.
Yeah, I think it did. But I mean, like, the worst part is like it would be that, and then it would just continue for like the next 10 rounds. You just like, please, I want this game to be over now.
But kind of
like PV, at least like people would save.
Yeah, well, what I saw there was just FaZe kind of playing the way they used to in a way. Playing the risky kind of 4 spy style, which I mean is obviously something you see out of the French teams a lot, but it's not something you expect to see out of a Carrigan-led team. And going into the final, you had this pretty terrible game, to be honest. They had a relatively easy path, of course. I mean, you like to point that out, eh?
It's easier than, like, I mean, it's much like the CLG side. It's like they beat who they put in front of them. So I'm not complaining about them so much as like North completely just, again, getting dumpstered by a team that they shouldn't have lost to. Made the fact that FaZe getting to another final a little bit easier. Because, yeah, beating Hellraisers, not so great. I mean, sure, you can say the same thing for Astralis beating or having to beat CLG in the quarters. But I think there's a massive difference between having to beat Hellraisers in a semi-final than beating CLG in a quarter and then having to go play Na'Vi.
Yeah, I'd agree there. So I mean, going into that final, they had the form and everything, I guess, since they'd gotten there, but it just didn't seem as sort of all encompassing, like an all encompassing and dominating performance like we saw out of them at Katowice. Because Katowice was basically the Nico show, him continuing the way he played for Mouse Sports, or shall I say the domination he displayed for Mouse Sports, translating it over to the firepower that's in FaZe, and that just machine kind of rolling forward and missing out relatively narrowly in the finals. But in this final, they obviously were a lot closer to Astralis. They beat Astralis, but it didn't seem like nobody hit that crazy level. It was like you were pointing out there, Phantom. It was just an all-round superb team effort.
Yeah,
100%. I was actually wanting to bring it back a little bit and just ask you guys of your opinion about Na'Vi and where they are at the moment. Do you guys still think that their downfall at present maybe still lingers on from when Guardian injured his arm and I think he had to have an operation. I can't recall what actually transpired there.
Last year.
MLG
I mean, Guardian
Columbus,
looked much Guardian looked much better at this event. He looked fantastic at this event, but it seems like Navi's lot in life right now is look good, get to playoffs, play Astralis, get wrecked, go home. That's pretty much their circle of life right now. Is that it doesn't matter how well they play. It's like, oh, and we've drawn Astralis again, and Astralis is our hard counter, so we're going home today. I don't know. Like, I still don't know exactly where I stand on Navi. They certainly looked better this event, but again, it's like they play well. So you're like, okay, how good is this team? And then they play Astralis, who just wrecks them. So then you're like, okay, so are they bad? Are they good? Is Astralis just like this natural enemy to them? But it just seems almost unfair for Na'Vi at the moment that every single playoff bracket they seem to get Astralis, and most of the games aren't close.
Something to point out about Na'Vi is this was the first offline tournament they played without Starix as a coach. They got their former analyst, who's now their coach and whose name I cannot remember for some reason. Andy. Okay.
Andy.
There we go. I was thinking Amy.
Andy.
I don't know why. I'm like, why would you be called Amy? What's going on with my mind here? But anyway,
yeah, it's
moving on. They looked better in the group stage. I mean, exactly as you say, they had dominating performances in the group stage. They looked good, and they were playing a little bit more outside of the traditional Na'Vi style at times. I mean, they still played the slow style, but they mixed it up a little bit more, which was nice to see.
But I mean, a lot of people have been saying that like Na'Vi playing that default slow style has. I mean, it's not that it's a bad style. It's just it's a bad style for the team that you have. If you have a team of 5 players as skilled as that, to then go and force them into this tactical style, which clearly just wasn't working for them. If you don't have a player like Zeus controlling them. It's not working. So I did enjoy the change up in styles to that more fluid, more aim heavy, sort of aggressive style that they were running. And I, like I said, they looked better than they have the last, say, 3-4 months, in my personal opinion. So I was glad to see that. But yeah, it's like Phantom says, if Guardian can keep up this level of performance, I think Na'Vi becomes massively dangerous because he's been getting there, but until this event, he hadn't reached old Guardian levels yet.
But that's sort of what it comes down to is, as you can imagine, because of CSGO being one of the most competitive esports titles around, it's a forever evolving esport. The old Na'Vi from a year or two ago was unstoppable at a point. Not necessarily Guardian and hurting his arm, and that being a result of why they're struggling now. It's like you say, they're still in that same slow play style that they're so used to. They're not evolving as a team where other teams have evolved like Astralis now into and have found that winning formula. So perhaps Navi's problem is that they're not focusing more on trying new things and actually trying to expose weaknesses and force errors upon teams like Astralis when they actually play against them.
Yeah, like I said, the thing is, Navi's recently changed up, or I mean, with the new coach, they seem to be trying to adapt to something that fits them a bit better. Because the old style, like, it worked, but it works if you have the specific players, and if you don't have those players, it's not going to work. You know, it's like trying to make someone like, I mean, G2, trying to make G2 run like the old existence teams of the day. Like, unless you have existence there, not going to work. You don't have that like the mind for the game of existence in the team. Yeah, and that's the problem. Is so there's, you know, I mean, I'm certain you've met it in the past, Phantom, when you guys were playing Quake, is that like you'll play against a guy he's fantastic at doing something, but he's trying to, you know, like he'll be fantastic on rails, but like he'll think that his rockets are weak, so he'll just sit and play rockets all day, and you're like, but your rails are so good, why don't you just emphasize your strength as a try to fix your weakness type thing?
Yeah, it's exactly it. Rafa, probably the most consistent Quake player around for the last decade. That's probably won the most international tournaments. If you look at him in terms of his aim, he's probably not even top 4 in the world. But what makes him the most consistent best player is that he has such a strong mindset, in the sense that he plays to his strengths, and when he's playing as an opponent and he's discovered that his opponent is really strong on this area of the map or with that specific gun at that portion of the map, he avoids those fights altogether. He doesn't even fight there. He forces fights in other places where he is more comfortable and has the confidence to actually win it. So, yeah, it obviously touches back on into CS with Navi, and I think, yeah, it looks like they are getting there, and I appreciate the adaptation from the new coach. But I think now maybe what it's coming down to is they might have developed a bit of a mental block against Astralis. And I think they need to find that belief that they can actually beat them, you know, and then just go balls to the wall and go ham.
Yeah, I think the day that they do start beating Astralis regularly is going to be an issue for everybody in the scene.
Yeah, but I don't think we've seen the loss of Navi. I think maybe within the next year we can expect them to maybe win a major. I'm quietly confident in that.
Bold, very bold.
Yeah, very, very bold.
Okay, well, I think that would be you know, if the lineup stays together, that the ceiling for this lineup is incredibly high. Like, I don't think anybody's disputed that. The issue really has been that they've got all this crazy skill, but they're never really able to convert it. I mean, obviously they won ESL 1 New York, and that was off the back of simple, like, just doing simple things. I mean, he got Team Liquid to a semi and a final of a major, and like, where have they been since then? They've been shit. So, you know,
exactly.
The guy is so explosive, and on his day, I mean, it's basically between him and Nico for the player who on their day can, you know, be the most dominant player in the world, really. And but the difference with between FaZe and Navi is that Navi also has Guardian, who is probably the most godlike AWPer in CS, barring maybe Kenny S on form. So, you know, if he's on form and Simple's on form, it's Alu is not as good as Guardian. Alu is a great player, but he's not Guardian. And then you got Flamey, who's probably got the best of the very best one-shot headshot accuracy of any player with an AK. I mean, that guy is just, I don't think he's a smart player. I think he's a bit of a potato, to be honest. But you know, the guy's
an in-game potato. Let's put it.
Yeah, that way. I mean, he needs an in-game leader to direct him, but he is so good. Seized also has been an incredible player. He's just dropped off a lot, and I think that's been part of the issue, is that Seized has not been clutching in the way that he was and opening up rounds in the way that he was a year ago. That's been a major issue to them. And I mean, Edward is Edward. He kind of does what he does. He's never, you know, going to be the superstar anymore, despite what he may internally think, which, you know, he seems to have the sort of air of I'm the man. But yeah, on your 14 kills, congratulations. But yeah, it's interesting. This team has just got so much potential, but just a couple months ago, people were talking about them possibly, making massive lineup changes because of how unsuccessful they had actually been, considering, they've been together now for a while. And now with the coach change, it seems to have put a bit of light at the end of the tunnel. I'm not hearing those conversations anymore, because, I mean, that was literally at, a month ago, guys.
It was at boiling point, basically, I think.
Yeah, it was absolutely a boiling point. So, I mean, Phantom, I agree with you. They could win a major, but they need the stars to align really well, and that's the one star that is Astralis, the beautiful logo. Show us your Astralis shirt there, Prof.
No, I'm okay with it.
You're not going to do it.
No, I'm not going to do it. I'll do it later.
But yeah,
I don't profess my fanboyism that hard.
Fantastic. So I mean, we got Phantom here with the Navi pick for the future. We got Prof who's obviously going to stick with Astralis. I mean, are there any other teams out of this particular tournament that you guys saw major glory in the future of, or are we just looking at going, wow, this is sort of a tournament where guys didn't live up to the potential?
I mean, personally, I think G2 probably has the biggest ceiling of what we saw in the quarters. I don't think we're ever going to see a 4-spy game like that again. I certainly pray that we never do. But for their first appearance on LAN, they did pretty well. I mean, they wrecked the group stages. That like the demolition job they did on SK was something to behold. I think it was like a 16-4 or something on what was it? Yeah, it was like a 16-4 on Overpass, if I remember correctly.
Yes,
They absolutely wrecked them off the map. That was pretty brutal to watch.
They needed to hand out the wet wipes after that because they got shat on, man.
Yeah, that was bad. Yeah, sorry, 16-8, but I mean, like, it wasn't close at many points in that game. So yeah, GT looked very, very good, but obviously FaZe just seemed to have enough for them, and Alu in particular went beast mode that game. So nice to see him doing very, very well. Apart from that, I think we were obviously let down a little bit by the guys that made it to the actual quarters in the end.
I think before you go there, let's just get Phantom's view on G2 quickly.
Sure.
Before we forget. Lest we forget our silent partner who occasionally speaks.
Yeah.
Look, they obviously got a team of hugely talented players. I think I don't know, it's almost as if they almost remind me to a certain degree of DC back in the day, where DC, like, they strive to be the best, and once they achieve that, they no longer care. They no longer wanted to maintain it. They no longer.
You're basically talking about the French as a race in general,
Yeah.
right now. as a people,
No, dude.
We are the
Wow.
best. We do not care.
Yeah, dude. It is what it is. It's who they are. As it's their genes. It's their genetic makeup. It's hilarious you point that out, but it's as true as it gets.
So I mean, where do you see they got, like, this is the French super team, yet they've been shit online. They come to LAN and they actually look really good. Are they going to be the like that sort of third team that joins with, or fourth team? I mean, if we're including Navi in it, that could be, one of the major winners in the coming years.
Look, they've obviously been working very hard, and it shows. And I think it just depends on
Motivation,
how long, for how long they can keep it up. There's only so much practice and time that you can put in with your teammates before it starts becoming a little bit toxic, and then it starts creating that distance within the team itself. So can they actually keep that glue together that makes them the team that they know they can be? It's extremely hard to discuss and to evaluate and to see where they can go. It's entirely up to them and how like-minded they can all be about what it is they want.
I guess that's the issue with the French scene in general, though. Is like Prof pointed out motivation. You talk about being like-minded and working together. Like the French scene never seems to know what it wants. Everybody change the lineup, change everything. I mean, we had Envious, who were two-time major winners, who then just suddenly played like shitters for the whole of last year, and 3 of them are in this team. So are they hungry enough to do this?
That's exactly what I'm saying.
I think the French teams are very much like, how motivated are they and how long can they stay motivated? Because they did it in CS Source, from what I understand as well, is that they make a new team and it's like this is the new French team, and then they wreck everyone for 6 months, and then it's like a slow tapering into like just uselessness, and then they make a new team, and then it's basically just valleys and mountains the whole time. That's pretty much how they play. So I think it very much is. I think I wouldn't say necessarily a culture, but it certainly just seems to be a mindset of the scene in general. That's how they play, and they aren't going to stick together for years on end like the Virtus Pro players, or stick with stability like the Danish players. And I think it gives them like a very distinct feel. Like it's a French team, because they have these incredibly high peaks when they're motivated, and then like these incredible lows when they hate one another for the 2 or 3 months that everybody seems to want to cut everyone else's throat. But
Happy's
once
not
they're
there
together
anymore,
and
so
are on a new team,
there should be less throat
Yeah.
cutting, one would hope.
But I mean, the thing is, it's taken so long for Kenny S and Jacques to get together. There's got to be something in that. There's never been hard ever.
Did we just lose you?
They just didn't see eye to eye for the most part.
So you mentioned a phrase there that I quite enjoyed, a slow descent into uselessness. Let's talk about NIP. Tell us about NIP.
No, please, guys.
Let's not beat a dead horse.
Well, it's dead already, but yeah, it's not ugly enough. Beat it some more.
Rip.
Nip. Yeah, there you go. Nip is rip. I don't know. I don't know what to say. I don't think anybody really knows what to say about Nip, even the players themselves. It's kind of a shambles, I think. They clearly don't want to get rid of the players that could be a problem.
But how could they keep selling
and
King
they're
of
willing to
Banana
stick with the
plushies
four?
without Freiburg, man?
Yeah, I don't know.
I can tell you exactly what the problem is, but people might not like me for it.
Oh, okay. Well, come on. You solve the problem, yeah. Just unlock it for all of us. Go for it.
Yeah, Get Right he's had better days, and I think if Nip dropped him for someone more explosive that can blow the game open for them, I feel all the other players in the team are pulling their weight as they previously had done. I find it's just Get Right that's just not being that explosive player that Nip have known him to be, he was the player that won their majors. He was the guy that would win a 1v3. He was that guy who could run into a site and blast 2 oaks and not even take a hit. He's been failing quite miserably on a regular occurrence, like for the last year or two now.
Mm.
I will say, like, I certainly completely agree with you there. Like, I do think that despite what we like to meme about Freiburg and exist, that it has actually been Get Right falling off a cliff that's done the most damage to Nip's chances.
You actually pointed out his ratings. I think we were talking about it the other day.
Yeah, it's like the problem is, like, Get Right will always get those chances, and he's a player good enough that he deserves those chances to work himself back into form.
But 2 years.
I wouldn't say it's 2 years. It's probably more of like closer to a year. I'd say that he's been really, really bad. The difference is there's just that, like, they've kept Freiburg and exist for so long at this point that, like, it just doesn't seem like they're ever going to change a player. And when they do, it doesn't even really matter at this point, because they haven't changed the players enough that like, Freiburg, not Freiburg, Forest is not doing that well. Get Right is now off a cliff, and now you've got, like, Draken plays well, but he's like a complete potato at times. Like, some of the stuff you see him do in game, it's just like, what is this guy's, like, what was going through your brain at that stage? But then you have, like, Freiburg and exist that like they're average with two bad stars at the moment, and like the whole team just does nothing really.
That's exactly what I wanted to touch on as well. It's also not exactly just Gertrude at fault. I'd say Forrest also used to be that player they could count on to clutch, and he also hasn't been doing anywhere near as well or lived up to his name and what he's been known to do. For me, Exist and Freiburg have been doing what they've always been doing, and actually, I think Exist might be slightly better than what he used to be. I think he's maybe the only guy in the team that's improved. But yeah, it's also quite funny to think now that they had Alu at a point, and they were worse off with him. In my opinion, I don't know what you guys think about that. And to see now that Alu is probably part of a top 3 major team now, it's good to see that maybe Nip didn't actually use him the way they should have, or maybe give him the freedom that he needed. So maybe that's what they're trying to do with Draken now, and NIP is looking for that more aggressive AWPer that can open up sites for them. But I think Draken's now taking on too much responsibility from Gertrude and Forrest not pulling their weight.
Yeah. I don't know, like that team is a mess right now. Draken, like, he can make those spectacular plays, like you say, but they need someone else to pitch up. Forrest does it rarely these days. He does seem like he's got a bit of French blood in him at times. When he's motivated, he's good. When he's not motivated, he's just ass. But that team I think needs at least 2 changes to fix itself.
I'd agree.
Maybe get right is the answer.
I've got a really soft spot for Nip. I've always had a very soft spot for them. Maybe probably the biggest follower, a huge fan of them, and it's sad to see that they came so close like a year ago, and now they're just nowhere.
Yeah, I mean they had one tournament win last year, which was pretty good. But
no, they won 3 events last year.
3 events. Well, I'm thinking towards the end of last year. Sorry, but
yeah.
It was,
towards the end. Yeah.
What was it?
Oakland.
IEM.
IEM.
Yeah, I mean they actually did better last year than I expected them to do. I mean, considering Pith is actually, if you're talking about the list of who's a decent Swedish professional, Pith is probably not in the top 20, you know. But he did a good job for them. They did okay, and I think more than any one factor, you know, with the players, it was probably the coaching that helped them out. I think they're one of those teams like Navi who got a bit fucked by the fact that Valve came with that coaching rule where the coach is no longer allowed to call in game. You could clearly see their plan was for Threat to call in game, and when he did, they looked incredibly tight, incredibly disciplined. And what we've seen lately is, I mean, he seems to be talking to them, but they seem to be doing what they always did, which is flatly ignoring him and doing whatever the hell they want. So, unfortunately, that doesn't work as we've seen previously. I mean, Natu had the same problem when he was their coach. They just don't listen. They do whatever the hell they want, and you know, it's just crazy. It's hard to understand as a person looking on the outside. Like if things aren't working for you, then why do what you've always done? Because clearly it doesn't work. But Nip seems to the players, they just seem to think that's acceptable. So, but I guess, hey, you know, you get the salary, you got the the DX Racer chair endorsement, you got your banana plushies, you got your chips and your Knocker energy drink endorsements. I mean, who cares, right? Money, bitches.
Certainly seems like it these days.
So
spot on, dude.
Let's look at a couple of the other teams very briefly, because we are digressing, of course, as we do on this video. It's called Deeper. We definitely do digress. I mean, there was CLG. They're not a good team, but they made it all the way to the semi-finals, which is very strange. But they got
quarters. They made it to the quarters.
What are you saying? What am I saying? Apologies. Well, I can't read. Quarters. They should have made it to the semi-finals. I mean, imagine how happy Moses would have been, eh? But
they would have had to be the strongest to get there.
Yeah, I mean, it's
they
had a bit of a softball there in that quarter.
Yeah, I would give credit where credit is due. I think they obviously still have to win their games to get where they are now. And I've always been a secret admirer of CLG. Also been watching a lot of their games, even as far back as the last 2 or 3 years, and they've always, even though obviously the lineup's changed quite a lot now than what it was back then, they've always been there and thereabouts. But yeah, I think obviously against some of the top teams, they will get stomped. Let's call a spade, boys.
So what boggles my mind about this is subsequent to this event, then on Reddit and some of the analysts who I respect, but now I have lost a notch for, is that they were saying, well, now CLG has proved themselves to be one of the top teams in North America, and they can take it to the best in the world. And I'm like, wow, that sounds like South Africans talking about bravado a few months ago. Are they on crack?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, like Steven said, let's call CLG let's call a spade a spade. Like CLG B2 was put in front of them, and I think they're better than like the meme, the meme of them is. But I don't think that they're going to be making playoffs regularly. Like this is out of the ordinary. I think they'll do better than average in groups. Like they might make it out of groups 1 in, say, 6 events that they attend, but I can't see much more than that. Like they're never going to win a tournament. They're never going to go much deeper than quarters. So I think, look, they did well at this event. They're certainly not as bad as the memes make them out to be, but I don't think by any stretch of the imagination are they a good team.
Is CLG the equivalent to Vienna Rejects?
Not quite, but
no. I think that's a bit harsh.
a bit harsh. Wow. Okay.
No, I'm just poking a bear a little bit there. No, I'm just messing the X.
Yeah, well, we like it. We like being poked. Anyway, moving on. Fnatic, well, talking about poking a bear, they looked pretty powerful in the group stage, and then suddenly didn't. So, I mean,
they ran to a Navi that looked on form, but that Fnatic Navi matchup is that's I think very much like a BVD versus EN matchup at the moment. Like Fnatic uses very very few strats. Navi as well is now aiming for a little bit more of the aim heavy style, and they just sort of ran into one another. And Guardian tore strips of Fnatic like it was going out of fashion. I think it was it JW that posted after the game like Guardian might be one of the best players in the world again, because I think he just wrecked Fnatic in that series.
Yeah, and JW was he was looking so good online with doing his JW things, and it just didn't happen in that game. So, but
yeah,
what can you do when you are facing a shitstorm? Well, I guess you can put on your raincoat, but you're still going to smell bad.
Yeah. No, that was not a good matchup for Fnatic at that stage. I think it's also like Fnatic's maps that they picked as well. Apart from Inferno, which they're known to be beastly at, like Overpass. Navi loves that map, and Mirage obviously is, I think, probably one of Navi's strongest at the moment, and always has been one of their God mode maps. So when you allow someone like Guardian to start taking control on Mirage, I mean, AWPers are known to be devastating on that map if they can move around, and Guardian is a master at that. So yeah, that was a pretty convincing victory over Fnatic, even though it was a 2-1.
Yeah, there were some funny online results of those two teams as well, with 16-2s going all around, but wasn't that at LAN, of course. Phantom, sorry, you were going to say?
Yeah, that's what I really like about Mirage. It opens up that opportunity for aggressive all plays, which can win you rounds. It's not like your typical overpass where your CT sits long for the first 20 seconds of the round, and then maybe starts poking around bathrooms. Mirage, you can do some innovative stuff with peeking stairs to mid. You can peek mid, obviously deep. You can drop down to peek underpass. You can do some cool things, and you can always send your AWP top B, even push apps in A. And I definitely used to do that quite a bit. So I think that's what's nice about Mirage, is that it's dynamic in the sense that you can abuse some aggressive players more than you can really. Obviously in Overpass you do have the fountain area that people, but it's so common, it's so expected. You know what I mean? T's generally, if a T has an AWP, they can post right there on the staircase and wait for the guy at fountain that's obviously just past fountain to try and stop the guys coming up the staircase. So that's what I like about Mirage. I think it's a lot more dynamic, and I think that's what also comes down to where the results we saw in the final with FaZe and Astralis is even though you'd expect FaZe to win, I think it's still that type of map that you can explode 1 or 2 rounds and take the map away from a team that you would not normally beat.
Yeah, I'd agree
Yeah.
with that assessment on that map. I mean, it's interesting how that map has actually evolved, because it used to be a map of very static CT holds, but it's kind of become that map where if you're on the CT side and you're not quite aggressive, actually, it can actually swing very easily to the terrorist, in the way that the map will actually play out, because it's a map where you end up doing retakes probably more than any other map as a CT, just due to the nature, particularly of the A-bomb sites, and also with the length of rotate. So, I mean, it's not what people who play matchmaking think. Well, the AWP goes middle and peaks middle. Well, nowadays the window stays smoked for pretty much the entire round.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work that way anymore. You have to be aggressive and inventive in the way you play as an AWP and move around, keep the opposition guessing. It's changed. I mean, I was obviously an active player in 2015, and already then we were thinking of the map in those terms. But even now, it's just evolved so far from being a static CT sided map to where now, yeah, it's still a map where the counter terrorists should theoretically win the half, but they're not going to win it without risk. Whereas, a map like Nuke, for instance, is sort of a win the half without risk for the counter terrorists. So it's a great map, and unfortunately, it's the accursed map if you play matchmaking now, because you get that instead of Dust 2 these days.
And I think it's probably one of the most exciting maps to see the top teams playing is purely because it's like you say, it's that fine art of knowing as CT when to be playing aggressive and when to be playing defensive. There's time and place for everything, and I think knowing that difference against your opponents and being able to adapt and reading them in the game in the moment that well is what will win you the game.
Absolutely. So let me just quickly gloss over another couple teams who made the top 8 there. We had Hellraisers. A little while ago, people were talking about Angel possibly joining up with Navi and making them better. Well, I don't see that happening, but they looked okay. They looked good. I mean, Dead Fox was good, but in their playoff game that last year was pretty absent. As a team in general, I mean, Stiko is a great player as well as an entry player. They've got decent pieces, but this was them overperforming and also finding the right opponents on the right day. And of course, you do make your own luck, but at the same time, they were one of the weaker teams to get this deep in a tournament like this. I mean, it's like Flipside getting what's it called, legend status
quarters
at
at
the major.
majors, yeah.
It's something like that. It's a little bit of an outlier, but I still think they can do damage. They're a good team, but will this happen again? Unlikely, but maybe. And the other side of it is North. You mentioned them as being quite Prof as being quite disappointing. Well, join the club, I guess. The North fan club is used to being disappointed, so you'd expect the whole time for them to actually get deeper in tournaments than they do based on the individual pieces they have. Because I mean, they got Config, they got Magic's Boy, star players. They've got now AZ, who was a star player. I mean, they got Cajun, who's at points been a star player. So I mean, they got plenty of explosiveness, and they got one of the best in-game leaders, and somehow they repeatedly disappoint. It's a little bit of that kind of Astralis falling at the last hurdle kind of thing from a year ago that seems to have translated to these guys.
Also, one thing about North, though, is that North has a slightly different issue in that, Astralis always, you could always count and device to put up the numbers, but then obviously once he got into the deep parts of tournaments, he would start choking and not provide that. North's is more like they can't decide who their star is, because one map it's Cajun, the next map it's AZ, the next map it's Config, and then it's Magisk, and then it's just like rinse repeat in that cycle, because it never seems as though you can. It's like you can't guarantee you're going to get 20 frags out of Magisk every game. And until they get that, I think they're really going to struggle. So they need to figure out how to at least make one of their potential 4 stars consistent at this point.
I'm honestly quite surprised to still see Cajun B playing for what we call maybe a second tier team. I've never really rated him, to be honest, and I think Astralis did themselves a favor getting rid of him. I think that's what gave them the edge and gave them the opening to get to places they could not previously reach.
Well, that's an interesting point. I mean, he has been a star at times, even for Astralis. But I don't know if you guys watched it, but Thorin's reflections video with Carrigan is really interesting to watch because it was done after Katowice, but before this. And there's some really interesting little tidbits that he talks about the internal workings of both FaZe and Astralis. And one of the things that he talks about is how Cajun B is like a very outspoken, direct sort of personality who will kind of tell you exactly what he thinks, but at the same time, he also thinks he's the best player, which you can kind of see that
I've heard
could
that.
be an issue. So you look at it and go,
Yeah.
okay, well, now you're in this team where Sam is actually, truth be told, you weren't the best player in Astralis. You're now in the team where you are potentially a star player, but you probably aren't the best player either because there's Magisk, if we're talking like raw skill. And then you're going to say what you think and probably tilt the fuck out of your teammates. So,
Exactly, that blatant. There's nothing worse than having someone on your team that has that absolute blatant arrogance, like as if literally the sun and moon both shine out of that person's ass.
yeah.
There's nothing
Yeah,
more
like,
off-putting than having someone like that on your actual team.
I think Thorin called him. What was it like? I'm trying to remember now. It was a video that Thorin did where he's like he calls Cajun like what it's like boundless confidence guy or something like that. Like the guy always believes he's going to be the best, but he's not. Like you never want him to be the best on your team. Like if he's the third best on your team and then he has a fantastic game once in every 4 tournament, or he has a fantastic tournament once in every 4 that you go to, great, fantastic, right? But he's not, like, you don't want that guy to be the best player on your team. And I think that is North's problem right now, is that like he's one of the 3 best, but none of those 3 are like consistently the best. They have like 4 good players, but none like, there's no like this guy is the best player, then it's this guy, then it's this guy, this guy. Like most people say, yeah, Magisk is the best player, and I think I would agree with that. But he's not consistent enough to put up the numbers that you can then have one of the other 3 has their good game for the day type, or their good game for the week type thing. And until they figure out which one of those 4 is going to be the consistent star, I think North is going to be basically stuck at quarterfinals. So I can't see them making it past. They've gotten fantastic draws to get to semis the last 2 tournaments, and they've fallen against teams that they shouldn't have lost to. I mean, Immortals and Hellraisers are not world beaters, and certainly teams that North should have beaten.
Now you've heard it here first, but I think North still has a little bit of respect for Cajun B, but it's not going to last long. Maybe give it another 3 months, and I'm sure they'll kick him from the clan.
So another question there is, if there's no Cajun B, then they need an offer. So are we talking suddenly Yugi from Heroic comes from obscurity, rising like the phoenix from the ashes, the player who was banned from being able to play because another clan showed interest in buying him from Trick, and then suddenly he's in the second best team.
Well, I think Heroic and North are owned by the same overall company, aren't they?
Refresh Entertainment is actually a marketing entity, so they have some ownership, but I don't think they're owned in its entirety. Well, no, Refresh.
Because I know that they.
No. North is.
No, Refresh is Fnatic. North and Heroic are FC Copenhagen, I think.
No, FC Copenhagen.
I know that they play
North. Refresh is actually Astralis and Heroic, and it was Norse, but Norse is just disbanded.
Oh, all right, great.
See,
but
yeah, it's in there, bro.
I think for me personally, if they do drop Cajun, I mean, Pump's back in
that
Europe.
could be a really good pickup, and he played with.
Just please don't make him an AWPer. Just please don't make him.
But no, you have to make him
Dear
an
God,
AWPer now.
don't
Like
make
he's
that
gonna
man.
AWP,
bro. No, please. I don't want that to happen ever again. Like, I like Pimp as a player, but dear Lord, when he was an AWPer, that was horrible. It's like you just watch this guy like, what are you doing? What are you doing, please? So
yeah,
I mean, I do think that if North continues to go out in quarters, they will make a change. I think Pump is probably the next off the rank. He has played with MSL before, and he's willing to do the dirty work. We saw that in Liquid. He's not a guy that's going to walk in and expect people to fall down at his feet and worship the very ground he works on because, he's like some past master. I do think that Pimp he's got the kind of personality that he'll do the crap jobs for the team to make them work. And they need that right now because I think since Rubinho left, they just don't have that person that's willing to do that on a consistent basis.
Yeah, Phantom, you got anything there to add, or are we moving on?
Yeah, no, like I'm in full agreement. I think North's still in the honeymoon phase with Cajun B. So I think it's just a matter of time now until that passes, and then they'll be like, okay, cool, let's kick him and let's replace him with someone like Pimp and just,
But he's a
move
beautiful
from.
Norse god of a man, blonde hair, huge muscles. I mean, why would you want to let a guy like that go?
No, look, it is what it is. I mean, you guys know my opinions. You guys know that, you obviously have to believe that you can beat your opponents. You obviously have to be very passionate about what it is you're doing. There's no quicker way to improve or to get to a level that you want to get to if you aren't passionate about it. That's gonna like get you there twice as fast. And you obviously, I think Cajun B is a typical person who's got these traits, but he's too eccentric about it, almost where he's pushing it past the point where he's almost like lying about it, like Hitler styles,
Misplaced.
like, yeah, like,
You heard it
push
here first.
lies.
Cajun B is Hitler.
Yeah, dude. He's the Hitler of CS:GO.
Jeez,
That's a bit...
this got out of hand. Wow.
That escalated quickly. Wow, okay.
But I get your overall point, though. You're saying it's this misplaced ego and confidence when the actual
dude.
on the service stuff isn't consistently backing it up, and that's the thing that can hurt a team overall, especially if a guy's like Ken, in-game leader says, "Can you do this?" and he's like, "Yeah, I can do it." And well, no, you can't. It's difficult. But hey, let's quickly get cracking on the next thing, guys, because we are still very far behind where we should be at this point. But I mean, the Hitler thing was great. I love it. So we had SK who dropped out there early, not looking all that strong at the moment. Prof and I were talking about it the other night because, as we do, we talk about CS:GO even when we're not on camera, which is entertaining in itself. But I mean, SK Phelps plus Fur at the same time trying to do the same thing doesn't seem to be working really. I mean, Phelps is good on Mirage, Fur is good on all the other maps, but it's not got the balance it had when FNX was in the team, and Fallen is not AWPing well either. I mean, it's like there could be a case made that he probably shouldn't AWP based on how he's been playing lately.
Yeah. SK at the moment is not looking fantastic. Their map pool has fallen apart for the most. Like I said, I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of this SK lineup. I think Phelps is great on Mirage, and I just don't see him doing that much. Like, he gets frags on the other maps, but I just don't know what he's doing on the other maps as much. Like they're so aggressive, Phelps and Fur at the moment, that like I think it actually ruins the dynamic of the team in that they sort of like there was that old stat where like I think SK had something like an 80% win rate when they had a player up in a in like a 5v4 or a 3v2 type thing. Like they would never lose those rounds almost, whereas now they seem to lose them with regularity because FaZe and Fur and Phelps seem to push off the site to try and take fights, and once they die or they get out of position, the enemy teams can then just push in and pick off the rest of the team. So yeah, I think SK's got some things to sort out, and they need to sort it out quickly because I can't see them going too many events with group stage exits like this. VP will go through thick and thin. SK and Fallen in particular has shown that he is going to swap players if things aren't working.
So talking about VP there, let me check it over to you, Phantom. Where do you see VP at based on this particular horrible exit?
Yeah, well, sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to touch on. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but
bro. What the hell?
I'm so happy. I don't know about you guys. I'm so happy that SK is no longer dominating the international scene like they used to.
Oh.
I was honestly a bit bored but like it bored me to the death. Like I was like, I'm actually so done with watching those oaks play the same way. Even though it worked and they were winning, it just I don't know, I just got bored of it.
Yeah, well, Prof probably shares that sentiment. You're no great fan
Uh,
of Brazilian CS there.
I can admire the skill and the effort they put in, but I think the players personally, I don't like the players personally, but the team, I have respect for what they achieved. Like you can't deny their achievements. 2-time major winners, all the rest. I mean, you could say they maybe got a bit lucky on their first major win, beating a Navi with like a broken Guardian, but they pretty much came top 4 at every single event they attended. So
Well, that's the key to it has
yeah,
been their consistency. I mean, aside from IM Katowice last year, they almost never finish outside of the top 4. So now here you see a group stage exit. And of course, I like Phantom coming in there with the left field view. I enjoyed that very much. Real bored of these guys. Fuck those guys. Let's get somebody else on that stage.
Dude, it is what it is.
But yeah, I mean, talking about them, I mean, we're going to talk about CS Summit in a little bit, and I guess there'll be a big talking point there. There's Virtus Pro, and I mean, Virtus Pro, as Prof mentioned, they're not going to change the lineup. They're going to stick together, but now it's 2 tournaments in a row where they've pretty much done nothing after being, basically taking Astralis to the brink, and only a miracle round from Astralis really, well, not miracle, but close to it round from Astralis on train actually bringing them that major victory. Virtus Pro had it in their hands. And of course, then Virtus Pro took the next tournament, and Taz got himself a Merc, and now that he no longer has to walk anywhere, as the guys in Counterpoints put it, which I thought was wonderful, he's no longer motivated because he can drive everywhere. So
yeah. But I mean, like the thing is, VP goes through this. It's the VP cycle. Win a tournament, do well, go through like a 3 tournament stretch where they're average or bad, and then pick it up again later on. So it's to be expected. I don't think groups, going out in groups is a bit surprising. Usually it's like quarters that they're going out in. But I mean, like I said, unless this continues for like another 6 months, I don't see that lineup changing anytime soon.
Yeah, like I don't think the lineup will change, guys. I think I don't know if we've seen any. I personally haven't. Obviously some in-depth interviews with the actual players to find out what it is they're actually focusing on. It may have just been that they want to just prove to themselves that they can reach that level, and now maybe they just obviously aren't putting in anywhere near the effort that they were previously. Do we know about any of those details? Is that maybe not the reason for
No,
where they are at the moment?
VP is famously quiet about any internal issues. Like you hear them, but it's more through like people that are in the know than rumors in the scene. VP is not an NA team. You don't hear about like how this guy hates that guy and this guy thinks this dude's a potato. Like that doesn't happen. They keep stuff very very tight amongst the players. So I mean, whether they're having fights, I don't know. But I think it's just at the moment, like, Snacks is having just an average time. Bialy's gone off the boil again. Pash is also not pitching. And if those three aren't there, I mean, unfortunately, Neo and Taz are not the stars anymore. So they're not going to be able to carry the team.
Yeah, it's seeing VP, I think it was 6 months to a year ago, where Snacks was really on fire. He was carrying so hard, and it was awesome to see like someone like him doing the hard yards, because you obviously expect someone like more experienced like Taz or Neo to be pulling that weight.
So let's just drop a little detail here. We won't talk about it, but what I think is quite funny is we've mentioned Simple being one of the very best players in the world, and we've mentioned Snacks being one of the very best players in the world. Do you know that both of them were banned at one point by ESL for cheating and re-entered the game? So yeah, cheaters should be banned forever, guys.
Yeah, that whole thing. I mean, cheaters shouldn't be banned. Like, I don't think cheaters should be banned forever. I think like a 2-year ban is enough. considering how much time actually passes in esports in 2 years, I think a 2-year ban is more than enough. And I mean, match fixes, there's obviously that discussion as well. I think we're getting very sidetracked now, but
oh yeah, well that's why I said I wanted to
yeah.
just drop it and move on. But Prof just has to have the last word. Yeah.
Go ahead.
So we got the Mettlestate. If we bring it back to South Africa on the hour mark, look at this. It only took us an hour and 4 minutes to get to South Africa. Screw you, Africa. Anyway.
Do we want to bother talking about it? Just kidding.
Whoa. So I mean, the Mettlestate group stages have ended. I mean, it's been a fairly long road because they broadcast twice a week, and it's not best of threes or anything like that. So it's taken a while to get here, but I think the content they've been putting out is pretty nice. It's been entertaining. It all looks very nice as well. And I mean, we got Bravado Pulse, Energy XD, DCF3, WRG, and XTC who've gone through. So now, I mean, the guys who are not there, APG are not there, Veneration in no form are through in any of the groups. And I'm no Ventus team either. So I guess that's not really a surprise, but it is interesting that Pulse have made it.
Yeah, I think they're probably the only surprise in that top 8. In my opinion, I think the other 7 is what you would expect from the scene at present, and I think it's justified, and I think it's going to be good to see how those quarters actually play out.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, it's also... Sorry, Phantom, I just want to cut in you quickly. The thing about Pulse is that they also didn't have a terrible group. It wasn't like they had just a bunch of crappy teams in that group to get through. I mean, okay, Fat Cloud Gaming, not especially well known, but Ventus Pro. I mean, Ventus came 4th in that group.
That's crazy.
So,
but I mean, they've had tremendous lineup upheaval, and I don't think that helps your cause in a tournament like this, or any tournament. I mean, honestly, that team's been a shambles.
Yeah, and lineup changes can obviously affect certain teams far more severely than others. Especially if it's a team that's had that glue of the same guys that understand and know each other's game plans and game styles, obviously makes all the difference. So yeah, maybe it's a bit unfortunate for them that's how it panned out. But I think it's obviously it brings some new blood into the top competitor scene in the country, and I think it depends now how well Pulse can step up to the plate and whether they can.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
they got some good players on the Pulse lineup. I mean, Kasparov's a good AWPer. I think he's the captain as well. I mean, generally, it's a good Premier Division team. It's a team that I wouldn't have thought is going to be especially competitive in the Masters sense, but there they are.
Yeah. I think it's really going to depend on how they work on LAN, because Mettlestate is obviously going to be the first LAN of the year. There was obviously discussion at a stage that it might not be, but I think the biggest thing about Mettlestate at the moment, besides the prize pool, is to see who's actually the front runner. Because Ian won the first show match online against BVD. BVD seem to consistently have their numbers since. But can BVD keep up that just ridiculous aggression that they've been running on? That just mad aim and mad aggression that they've been running, and nobody's been able to deal with them. Some teams do better on LAN, some teams do worse. Maybe the Ian team is going to work better in an environment where they don't have, Nefon and Canny just having a bad game on a Saturday and sort of tilting the whole team. Maybe they'll have sorted it out by then. They've got 3 weeks time till that LAN goes live. So I think it's going to be a very, very good measuring stick to see exactly where we are, because this is essentially the first of a number of LANs that are coming up this year. And Mettlestate, obviously one of the bigger ones, but definitely the one that you want to be looking at first.
Very good point you've raised. And I think it's, as people even have internet connections like fiber and things like that gives you 5 or 10 ping, which is virtually LAN, it's still a completely different dynamic playing online to playing on LAN. Yeah. And none of these teams have obviously played in the last 4 or 5 months on LAN itself. Well, maybe obviously with themselves, but they're still playing online. So I think it's going to come down to how well can the teams adapt. It's obviously extremely different playing on LAN. It's far more responsive. you find yourself making shots that you would not normally think are possible online. And I think it's comes down to who can adapt the most on LAN itself as to who will come out on top. I think again we'll obviously see some huge rivalry between Ian and Bravado, but I think it'll come down to between either of those teams to how well they can adapt and how well they can gel to who will win it.
Yeah,
I'm actually interested to see that flip side, sorry, that F3 side on LAN as well. They've notoriously had net problems, so I'd love to see what Zero Chance has been cooking up there.
Yeah, good point. I think they're an exciting team. They were really exciting at Mega 8, and I think, you know, a lot of people had, if you looked at their form in DGL, for instance, would have gone, oh, well, you know, who's F3, what are they going to do? Well, I mean, they did finish 5th at Masters last year, so it did pretty well. And, you know, they showed up again. It just shows you with a good in-game leader, you can do damage with a team that's not necessarily as fancied. Of course, all the pieces are pretty good in this team. It's just putting it together when everybody's internet works at the same time on the same day in the same time zone seems to be a huge issue for them. So yeah, as you say, LAN could be the great equalizer there, or we could actually see, okay, well, you know what, actually what we've been saying about them maybe isn't justified, but I guess we'll see. It's in 3 weeks' time. Not a lot of details are available yet. So, I mean, we'll talk about it in a bit more detail going into it, but it's kind of the spectre on the horizon that we know about now, because a few weeks ago it wasn't even certain that there would be a LAN. So that's fantastic that there is. I mean, if R1 million had been given out based on online only, you know, I would have probably rioted on my own, but you know, maybe brought a few other people in, you know, but it's great that it's LAN. We need more of this in the South African scene, and thankfully, as Prof says, there's a lot more of it coming up. Of course, the guys who are not going to be involved are APG. They didn't make it, but yet they're going to be involved in the ESEA Season 24 Finals, which is for the princely sum of $2,000. So some more easy pocket money, presumably for an 18-year-old CS:GO player on a team, I'm assuming. But we got Damage Control versus Bravado. That's on Thursday, which based on the time we're recording this video today is Wednesday. So it's tomorrow. So I mean, this video will probably come out the morning of. So we're talking Bravado versus Damage Control. It's kind of a replay of a game we saw at Mega 8. And I'm sure we would all agree we'd expect Bravado to come out on top there. We'd expect DC to put up a bit of a fight, and certainly we'd hope for a better showing than what we saw out of them. You know, in the just the way they were stomped by Energy, particularly in Mega 8. But it still should ultimately be a Bravado victory, right?
Yeah, I don't think any of us could really argue that DC has a better than 50% chance against BVD at best. So yeah, I mean, BVD should win that, I think, fairly comfortably, probably even a 2-0. Although I would love for DC to actually take a map. I mean, if they can make a God lead, I think it's going to put a lot of fright into BVD at that stage.
Yeah, I think we're gonna see more of the same from Mega 8. I think Bravado, especially if you think about players like, I think what we're all looking forward to seeing is someone like JT and Sonic. Them on LAN is going to be an unstoppable duo. And then you obviously can't even forget to mention players like Detrony and Elusive. It's gonna be shame.
3 weeks. It's coming.
I already feel sorry for DC, dude. I know it's coming.
Well, that's not LAN though. So I mean, that's still online in ESEA. So.
Yeah, ESEA is online, so unfortunately DC, unless they got good ping, I don't think that's going to be a very close match. Unfortunately, I'd love for it to be a close match, but yeah, it's just DC seems to have a bit of a mental block at the moment against BVD.
Well, you know that Burning Red is going to say #believe, so you know the ultimate diehard DC fan there. But yeah, we'll be casting that game. Should be entertaining. Me raining on his parade repeatedly. So I mean, the other game we got going as well at the same time. So unfortunately, it won't be cast. I'm trying to see if Snake Alele might do it, but unfortunately, the game was supposed to be for tonight, we wouldn't be doing this video. So I guess thanks Energy and Aperture. So we are doing this video at least, which is nice, but it's on at the same time as the other one, so I don't think we'll get to see it. Aperture are here. They did well in the season. They've gotten through the quarterfinals. They're in the semifinals. They didn't even qualify out of groups in Mettlestate. And I mean, at Mega 8, they were supremely disappointing as well. I mean, do they even have a chance against Energy?
I think they have a better chance against Energy than DC has against BVD, to be honest. It all depends on the kind of energy that rocks up on the day. If they're, in form and feeling good about themselves, I think Energy probably will win pretty easily. But if Energy gets off to a bad start, and I mean, we know the team doesn't have the best mental control with some of their players. If those guys get off to a bad start, those guys start getting upset with one another and not playing properly, I think Aperture has their foot in the door, and then it's up to them to open it as much as possible.
Yeah, I think Energy should take it quite comfortably. I think Aperture's going to put up a good fight. They may surprise Energy and take a map, but it'll be a 2-0 to Energy or a 2-1. I think Energy will bounce back if they do lose a map, but I think they're still strong enough to take it.
Something we haven't really mentioned is the map pools. We haven't really gone into much, I guess, in depth here, but it is interesting when you look at particularly BVD versus DC, the way their map pools actually overlap depending on who's favors what. It's actually quite interesting that they match up quite well on paper in that sense, but then you move it over to the server and you go, well, there's JT, there's Sonic, there's Fady, there's Tetrini. Oh, and Elusive can clutch as well. So I mean, what chance do the guys have? So it's just interesting. You talk in the international scene where there's such tiny percentages. I mean, in South Africa in the past we've had tiny percentages, but now it just kind of feels like Energy and Bravado are on a tier above the rest of the guys, and Bravado in particular, or maybe even quite a long step ahead of where Energy were. So it's interesting to see how things will shake out. And again, LAN's going to be the great equalizer, but we've got these playoffs coming up pretty soon. The final, I think, will be on Monday, I do believe.
Monday?
Yeah, it was supposed to be Sunday, but there's this other little thing called ESL Africa qualifiers, which are happening also on the ESEA platform on Sunday. So I can kind of see how that might, you got this big German corporation, and then you've got $2,000, which
yeah, and
2 million rand,
and the
$2,000. Which one are we?
And it just so happens to be that the big German corporation owns ESEA as well. So I suppose it's fair enough they can.
Leaving it. Basically,
Like.
so I mean, let's talk about the details here. We're talking ESL Africa with it's $150,000, which translated at the time to 2 million rand, but it could end up being a few more million rand, depending on how deep Jacob Zuma inserts his foot into his mouth. So the price call could go up, folks.
Sure, we're going to talk politics now.
Well, I mean, Jacob Zuma, Hitler, we've brought them all out.
Wow. Oh, let's call in Trump then in North Korea.
Jeez. Wow. Just like full on conspiracy level nonsense now. But yeah, I mean, the thing about ESL is I'm still not exactly sure how they're going to run it. We know that the finals are at Rage. We know that there's two parts. South African was, is it South African or Southern African?
Well,
is the
South
first part,
Africa
and they have a North African part, and then like the top 8, the top 4 from each part. Yeah, the top 4 from each qualifier then plays at Rage in September, October, whenever it is this year. So that should be a very, very interesting one. And certainly it's going to help with... Yeah?
Sorry to interrupt. Does anyone know if teams are able to play in both the DGL and the ESL at Rage?
Well, the question is whether DGL's finals will even be at Rage, because the conversation last year was that they were hoping to do their own event separate to Rage because of the limitations that Rage puts on them, aside from the limitations they put on themselves, I guess. But, it's... I don't know. I would imagine that it would be in their best interests not to have it at the same time as ESL because, well, 2 million rand versus 500,000 rand certainly that's a little bit differently. Although, let's be honest, there's Hearthstone involved as well, which we haven't mentioned, so that probably puts it at more like 1.5 for CS. I would imagine. They haven't released that information. Deviant actually tweeted about it and said that. I don't know where he got that from, but I guess maybe he knows something I don't. But he was saying 1.5 for CS and 500k for Hearthstone. So I mean, 1.5 is still a significantly larger chunk of money than 500k split 10 ways. So I would imagine if you're a team, you're going to look at it and go, well, maybe it's a good idea to take the bravado and flip side route, because instead of having to play all these online matches that don't actually mean anything for the entire year, we can just focus our energies on this and swoop in and get paid. So,
exactly. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but did Flipside not already withdraw from Masters to compete in the ESL?
Yeah, well, that's big news. I think it kind of went under the radar a little bit because it was announced on the same day, and in a very sort of offhanded way. So I mean, I actually highlighted it because I was like, no way, people should be losing their minds about this, but instead they're sort of not really noticing it. And I got a bit of conversation going there, but which was fun.
But we know what it comes down to, right? It's now how many teams are going to follow suit, and how many teams are going to hold back, waiting for other teams to do the same thing, so that they have a better chance of winning bigger cash in DGC.
Well, the question is also how many teams are going to try to have their cake and eat it. What about this scenario? What if you decide to play in the group stages of ESL because there's money on the line for the group stages, unlike Telkom Masters where you don't get paid for the online or the group stages, and it all means nothing, and the points don't matter, and it's an episode of Whose Line Is It Anyway? But
precisely.
So you play ESL group stages, you get paid for those, and then you ditch the finals and go play the Masters finals so you can get paid there. What if you like a fifth place sort of team, so you're not going to have a chance to even be at the final for ESL? Have your cake and eat it.
I mean, the one thing to remember about the one thing to remember about this whole situation is that both of these tournament organizers are notoriously
intolerant,
difficult, intolerant of other organizers. I mean, Telkom has been that way for many years, and by all rights, that they were the primary mover and shaker in the South African scene, so you couldn't really argue with them. But ESL is the top dog at the moment in the rest of the world, essentially, because of the backing that they have. It's really going to come down to who's willing to take take the first step, as it were, to concede. Because if you concede right at the beginning, I mean, that instantly loses you your only real, what can I say? You can only be aggressive once. If you back off now, they'll know that you're willing to do it again, type thing.
Yeah, I fully agree with you. I think it might take some time, but I think what we could probably expect to see is the top 4 teams. If ESL and DGC happens at Rage, or on the same weekend per se, I think we can expect to see the top 4 teams in South Africa playing in ESL over DGC, and I think it'll favor both sides, both the top 4 and the bottom 4, in that regard. Whereas the bottom 4 would now have a better chance of winning bigger cash pools, whereas they were previously not if it was just DGC.
The difficulty, I think, is the contracts from Telkom. They have rather draconian contracts that don't allow you to do things that compete with them in terms of timelines. So I think that could actually put the teams in a very difficult position, because I don't think Telkom's the kind of organization that would necessarily allow that to happen without legal action. So it could very easily get into some kind of protracted legal battle or something like that going on. I mean, obviously us as fans would not know about it. Of course I know about these things, but I'm not allowed to talk about them. So, I'm not supposed to know, but, people talk as it turns out. But, it could be a very difficult situation, but it's also good for there to be competition in our scene. And I mean, Telkom were the unassailable giants for a long time, and credit to them for putting themselves in that position, because it means good decisions were taken to put themselves in that position. But they need to make some good decisions now where, I mean, we could see an arms race where it all escalates and, okay, well, now, they're giving 1.5, so now we're doing 2, and then ESL comes and says, well, screw you, motherfuckers, we'll do $2 million, or I don't know, that won't happen. But, something like that, I mean, a lot of money is good, but right now there's not the return of investment possibility for any of these companies. Nobody's making money throwing R1 million from Samsung, or 2 million rand from ESL, or 1.5 from Telkom. Nobody is making money doing this, and I think this is where people are not realizing. So if it gets into an arms race, it's going to be even more unsustainable even quicker, and that means that it's all going to end even quicker, which is very bad for the scene. What is good for the scene is competition, and the competition that is sustainable. We need the viewership to go up. We need more fans to be engaged with it. We need it to have an impact beyond the couple hundred people who watch streams in South Africa to the broader base of Counter-Strike players, the broader base of gamers, and possibly sports fans. And ESL partnering with Kwese is a really good step in that direction, because Kwese is basically the competition to Supersport in the rest of Africa. So they would clearly understand how to attract viewers, and obviously they've got the TV platform to do it in the rest of Africa. But locally, I would, speaking from myself, I would caution Telkom, ESL, Mettlestate to get into an arms race with each other on prize pool. It's really got to be about just work your scheduling out, make sure that the teams can get to everything, and that we get the viewership for everything. Because if we build the scene together, it's better. Of course, I doubt ESL is interested in that. They're always interested in dominating this
hegemony,
the scene. Yeah, as you say, they're usually interested in a monopoly, and that's good business practice, and I'm fine with that. As a business person myself, I want a monopoly. I want to get everybody's business. But, for a scene as a whole, it's good that there's competition. So let's hope that Telkom, if they were planning to have Rage have Masters at Rage, they should really look at doing it as a separate event. I mean, they were talking about doing it anyway, so let's hope that they go the route that the teams can actually kind of do everything. Because if it comes to legal battles and things like that, that's not good for anybody.
No, I do fully agree with you. I think the these three organizations need to collaborate on what it is they're actually doing, because if they don't, it's like you say, they will ultimately actually just divide up the scene, which will end everything a lot sooner than everyone would want it to.
Yeah, I mean, the whole house of cards falls in on itself at that point.
So I mean, something else to just mention as well, there was the change of the qualifier dates, which actually they did the very day after if you actually looked at the article, I noticed it and tweeted about it. So you can go look at my Twitter feed. I actually mentioned it more than a week ago that they changed it, presumably, I would assume, not to clash with Mettlestate. And now they actually put out a press release saying that, and now some people are like, fuck Mettlestate, why are they making us change? But don't say that. Mettlestate are nice guys, but it's just, it's been done already a long time ago. It's just they didn't put out a press release. Now that they put out a press release, let's all get it good and angry, boys.
No, you know what it is. It's the people that are complaining are the ones that don't actually think about what we've just discussed. Yeah. They obviously haven't realized that yet.
The problem is people need to look past the money and see, because just dropping 2 million rand today is not going to keep the business running for the next 10 years. You need to be reasonable about it and grow it, because if you have, say, let's say we have 30,000 people watching in 10 years' time in South Africa. That's a significant number of people watching, and that might be worthy of a return in, that might be actual return on investment at that point. But dropping 2 million rand today, just to have the biggest prize pool out there, and then 2 million rand the month after because somebody else has got a slightly bigger tournament or something, that's not worth the money. Everybody needs to work together to grow the whole scene, and then the prize pools can match. It's great to be playing for this amount of money, and all power to the players who are going to be playing for that kind of cash. But I think everybody needs to look past purely the prize pool and look at growing the entire scene.
Yeah, I
100%
don't know if you
agree.
guys saw what Andreas what Sent did from Bravado. He sent out a bit of a survey on Twitter. I think it was yesterday or the day before yesterday. Just
Yeah.
just some general questions on. He's just trying to, I guess, spread the word and just trying to evaluate and get an actual number on how many people actually play PC and what games they play on PC, and if they play on console, what games they play on console. And it's those type of things that we need to. At the end of the day, it's going to grow the community into what it is we know it can develop into. I mean, if you consider esports in South Africa versus a place like Korea, it's two different worlds. They're worlds apart in terms of where esports is. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys know, but the the manager of the Korean soccer team got the best StarCraft players in Korea
Yeah.
to come in at halftime to encourage the national soccer team to play better in the second half against Germany. Where in the
Like,
world is that going to happen today in South Africa?
It's
How,
like,
how,
who
how,
are
how,
no,
these
it
kids and
isn't.
how did they get in our dressing room?
dude,
Guards.
how many years behind is South African esports to the rest of the world, really? So these are things that Mettlestate and ESL and DGC need to come together on and then actually understand and form that alliance and that bond and actually grow it into something where they can mutually understand that it'll be profitable for them in 2 or 3 years' time.
Yeah. I mean,
Absolutely.
the thing is, like you were mentioning, Cent doing the survey. It's like it's guys like Cent and BVD and EN and ABG and White Rabbit, all these teams. Like these are the guys that actually need a scene. It's useless having 3 tournaments a year that drop massive prize pools and that's it. If they have a small event every single, a smaller event, let's say it's only 50,000 rand every month type thing, they can then justify getting players on, paying these guys. I mean, it's not going to be a massive salary at the start. It might only be, say, 2,500 rand a month to play online every night, but at least gives those guys encouragement that here's something they can work for. And then that's how you grow the scene. In 10 years' time, none of the VVD team is probably going to be playing outside of maybe JT and Sonic, perhaps. And like that's only just because the like how young they are. But there's no guarantee that they're going to be playing in 10 years' time. In 10 years' time, it's an entire, probably 2 generations down in terms of how esports runs with the ages of players. So the guys that are like, yeah, I mean, the guys that are like 12, 13 now, those are going to be the guys that are the stars then. You need to realize that it's the guys that are going to be 22, 23 in 10 years' time that are going to be the guys that need to have the scene around them to be able to become professional players and all the rest.
I fully agree. There's too many players in South Africa that play at high competitive levels, but that is it. They don't do anything more than that. And in itself, that doesn't grow the community whatsoever. We don't have enough guys in South Africa streaming. We don't have enough guys doing coaching. We don't have enough guys actually giving lessons. All these types of things that you find your international stars doing, which is what grows their local community and what grows esports as a whole.
Yeah.
Well, if we look at say the example of somebody like SK, for instance, the Brazilian scene. I mean, a lot of people would like to believe, say now, Bravado Energy go overseas and actually compete well and become like a top team in the world, which is feasible. Like, I mean, I said a little bit earlier on that it's ludicrous to believe that they competed against the best in the world and beat them, because they didn't. But they showed a level of skill that is comparable, and with given time and coaching and the right sort of opportunity, yeah, they probably could. The current Bravado lineup probably has the skill there to compete on the international level to a reasonable degree. But would that bring more players to the scene? Well, look at the Brazilian example. They won the World Championships in 2006 it was with FNX, when he was but a mere child basically.
Yeah,
he was
Kogu and them.
Kogu. I mean, one of the most legendary players ever to touch the game. I mean, I saw he was playing again recently, which is crazy. 32 years old. But I mean, one of the very best AWPers to ever play. They won the World Championships, and 10 years later, where were Brazil on the international scene? Absolutely nowhere, with a very small scene locally, despite the international success that they had. Then it took, SK coming from nowhere again with minimal resources out of a scene that doesn't have anything, performing on the international level. And now there's some interest in Brazil. Those teams are moving to North America. But think 10 years in the past, they already succeeded in the international level, but it didn't cause their local scene to explode and suddenly become like a world beater. It had to happen twice, in fact 3 times, and now it's something's actually happening. Now there's ESEA happening there and a Brazilian ESL tournament.
And also it required massive amounts of investment from Fallen. He's essentially built that scene. He's got the Games Academy running there, which essentially teaches most of the top players in the country, like, this is the style that you should be playing, this is what you should be doing. So, like, it's a lot of coaching. It's a massive amount of investment from Fallen in particular to get the scene to that point. And right now, we certainly have the raw skill and the raw talent, I think, to at least do damage at the top level. But we need to get the rest of the stuff, the coaching, the team play, the confidence under pressure type thing. That's, I think, the next step. And Stephen was there. Stephen was, playing ESWC. What is it? 2005, I think, was your first event when you went to ESWC.
Yeah, so World Summer Games 2001, but yeah, ESWC was 2003 and 2006.
I remember seeing your face in magazines, bro. Nag magazine.
Oh, those were the best, dude. I used to pose so hard when I had that middle path.
Pull the magnum.
But there we go. Like, Steven's been there 10 years ago, and like, has the scene massively grown to the point that Steven could make it a career these days? No. Certainly the game that you were that good at has never been big enough to really justify it in South Africa. But I think even if you had been one of the best Counter-Strike players in the world, that it's not a big enough scene in SA right now to justify you going pro type thing.
No, it is not. And I wanted to touch on that now, is I think the approach Mettlestate, ESL, and DGC need to take is they need to understand that the current marketing schemes that they are using is only appealing and reaching out to those in the know. It's not reaching out.
That. I agree.
It is what it is. It's not reaching out to people that don't know games. That they need to. I would like to see them spend a lot more money on marketing, even TV commercials, dude. They need TV commercials. They need multiple radio commercials on a daily basis, a month before an event. They need to arrange, like with Mettlestate. I'm glad Mettlestate's doing a LAN, but I hope that they can also. I don't know if they're going to be doing it for this event, but have a proper spectator arena, advertise that and market that properly, and get people to come. Even charge them 20 Rand entrance to come just watch. It's those types of things which is going to expand esports in this country to people that don't know what esports is, and that's what will take this esports further in this country.
Yeah.
Throwing 2 million Rand at the people in the know is only going to benefit the guys playing in the tournament. No one else.
I agree. I think in South Africa we're in a weird bubble right now where people see us. I know this from the business world as well. Like, I've gone to many meetings at overseas trade shows with suppliers and guys, and they go, "Oh, South Africa is the gateway to Africa. If we do well in South Africa, we'll do well in Nigeria." And it's like, no, that's not how it works. South Africa is the basically the hated neighbor of all the other African countries, resented in a lot of ways because of how we're ahead of them in terms of infrastructure and things like that. And a lot of other African countries, the guys feel that we're arrogant, which again, maybe that's just a perception, but this is the thing I've heard from traveling a lot. And it's just interesting that internationals think South Africa is what opens up the rest of Africa. And we have a more developed market in Africa. We have the infrastructure in Africa that's comparable to Europe 20 years ago or something like that, which is far in excess of our African neighbors. But what we do in South Africa doesn't really filter well to the rest of Africa because we are quite insular as a country compared to our neighbors. We don't really participate with what they're doing.
And also Africa, and also Africa is an enormous continent.
It's huge, yeah. They don't realize that as well. But like, I think the point that I was trying to get to here is like we're in a strange situation in South Africa right now with CS:GO and esports in general, and that because people see South Africa as the gateway to the rest of the continent, they're investing massively in something that currently doesn't exist in a way that's sustainable in anywhere near the next couple of years, basically. It's a scene that is so small right now, but so much money is being thrown in. And I mean, thank you to these companies for getting involved. It's amazing that they see the potential. The potential is there, but exactly what Stephen is saying there, what Phantom's saying is, unless they appeal to people outside of the traditional esports sphere, we're not going to grow anything. It's going to go away. So it requires that, but it also requires us in South Africa possibly trying to focus on building things in other countries in Africa, which we don't typically do. We think of ourselves as South Africa and then the rest of Africa. And I mean, Kwese particularly, and ESL Africa, Kwese is an African broadcaster. They don't broadcast in South Africa that I know of. I mean, they've probably got the might and the money behind them that they could do that to the rest of Africa to actually grow it. So I think that's exciting in itself, because unlike the other guys that are involved, they do have the footprints in Kenya and Rwanda and Ghana and all these sorts of places. Basically, their platform is like Netflix for sport. It's pretty freaking cool. I wish we had it in South Africa, actually. But
correct, and I think that's maybe could lead into the difference that it needs for it to actually expand, is that with Kwese and ESL, is like you say, it'll be like a Netflix online streaming service, and they'll then naturally broadcast any events that they are associated with and organizing with ESL and all of that, and it'll get viewership once, I think, Kwese has actually established a name for itself. I don't know about you guys, but I never heard of Kwese up until they merged up with ESL for this event. I'd never even heard of them.
I'm in the audio industry, and I happen to know they're busy outfitting a rather nice studio. So we know, but the rest of South Africa probably not.
Yeah.
So the thing is, I think it all depends on how Kwese gets involved. If they come in like the traditional, we want to do it like traditional sports and all the rest, I don't think it's going to work. They have to basically do a turn of esports with E-League. They have to come in at it from, this is how esports is run currently overseas. This is how it's been run in SA. We need to not necessarily stick strictly to those guidelines, but we need to at least follow them to a point, because as soon as you corrupt it from what it is right now, I think you're going to break it, and then it's going to be CGS all over again in America, where for 4 or 5 years there's just nothing. It's a barren wasteland because the bottom falls out of it, because so many people they invest in they invest into esports in the wrong way, and then it ends up doing more damage than good in the end.
So Phantom, you got anything else to say there?
Just more of the same, is that I think it all just comes down to how they approach it, and if done right, we may be able to see some good development with esports in this country. And I think out of the three, the most promising aspect is obviously Kwese and ESL. Not only because of the prize pool, I think that is just to get the Kwese name, I think, out there and known to some of the public. I think it depends on how they reform it thereafter, and their approach with their marketing from there on in will depict how much further it can go. I don't see Telkom changing what they're doing anytime soon. It's still pretty much the same standard stuff. But I would like to see like Mettlestate maybe also looking at something like this, like try to step away from too much of people in the know and reach out to those that have no idea. But it's very tricky, because if you go to someone that doesn't play games and doesn't know anything about esports, and you say like, one of my friends just won 500,000 rand this last weekend in a gaming event, they'll be like, WTF? Like, what is this shit? You actually play games and you get money? It blows people's minds. Like, the thing is, they just don't know about it. It's not like they even have to have that full in-depth knowledge, like what is CSGO and how does it work. They just need to you just need to plant that seed. They'll then naturally start Googling, start watching videos, and naturally it'll form itself. So
following on from that, I think it's also like we should never try and sell people esports on the basis of a prize pool. Like, it shouldn't be about these guys can play. These guys are playing for 2 million rand. That's the easiest way to, it's the easiest way to tell your mom and your dad, but that's not how you're going to sell it to companies, or how you're going to sell it to people that can actually make a difference in the scene. Telling them the guys playing for 2 million rand, it's not relevant to them. You want to explain to them, you've got, what was the last major? 1.3 million people watching. That's what you sell to them.
Yeah.
1.3 million people watching the finals of a CS:GO major. 1.1 million people watching day one of the international for Dota 2. 12 million people watching over an entire event for League of Legends World Finals. Those are the numbers that you need to sell to them. Those are the things that you need to impress upon them, and then you can talk about the individual games. You can't start with the prize pool and try to justify from that point, because that's never going to work.
Of course, but at the same time, the prize pool will appeal to certain specific people. So that'll win certain specific people over, but that's what I'm saying. They need to go beyond that to reach out to a majority crowd, rather. And the more people they have involved and interested in esports, the more money they'll actually see a return on, and the more they can invest and expand it even further.
Yeah, something that I've always thought. I mean, we're going a little bit off topic here, but this is an interesting discussion, so I kind of want to stay on this for a little bit. It's also turning out to be one of the longest videos I've ever done, so thank you for that, guys. But what's interesting there is that I kind of feel like when you mention the prize pool, and people go like, "Hi, yeah, jy kan baie geld wen met hierdie game." It's like it's this horrible sort of embarrassing curiosity that you promoting to people. Like it's on carte blanche. Well, great that it's on carte blanche, but what's being said is like, did you know that little Johnny, who's playing computer games, maybe you should let him play just a few minutes longer, because one day he could grow up and do that. And it's just like this horrible, inconsistent tone that's saying that esports is a curiosity and you could make a bit of money off it someday, but it's not legitimizing it as a sport. And I mean, the esports as a legitimate sport thing, I guess, is a different conversation. But at the same time, for something to be taken seriously, its viewership needs to view it as a legitimate sport, because, well, we're watching it, aren't we? So
yeah,
it's
legitimate competition, I think.
Legitimate competition, yes. I guess if you want to take, because I mean, some people will classify sport as something physical, and then of course there's people who play golf and chess, so get wrecked. But at the same time, I mean, I guess physical sports versus esports, and it's just, I think the tone needs to be, this is a thing, it is what it is, it's a competition. Yeah, you can make money at it, but it is a legitimate thing, and it's a thing whether you like it or not. So, maybe it needs to be reported in the sports section on radio. Maybe somebody like Kwese needs to jump in and sponsor the sports section on freaking 702 or 5FM, or, I think probably what would have more impact is if it was like, I don't know, pretty much any regional African language radio channel has more listenership by a huge number than any like national English speaking channel. So, I mean, if you sponsor the sports section and you talk about all the traditional sports and you also drop the esports results in there, then that's already legitimizing it big time. If the way it's reported on it is a thing and it's not a curiosity, I think that would just go a huge way towards people taking it seriously.
Yeah, at the same time, it's very difficult in South Africa to expand it any further than it already is, because obviously with those less fortunate in our country, I'd say maybe 5% of South Africans even own a computer, let alone an internet connection. So even if you're reaching out to the bigger crowd, is that actually even going to create more players and more competition and more interest, more viewership, that which you need? So,
Well, like I think it depends which games you're going to market to them. Like you can't market something like Dota or CS:GO. I mean, the costs included there are just too high. But you do something like FIFA. I mean, soccer is an extraordinarily popular sport in the country, and if
In
you
Africa.
can, in Africa, if you can get FIFA big in Africa, I mean that opens the
door for other esport
door as
titles.
such.
So
Yeah.
you know what I think we should
So-
do, guys? I've been speaking with Nick Holden from ACGL, the console peasants, as it were. We're going to do a video in the new month, and I think perhaps we should have this conversation. Maybe have a four-way conversation. Could be pretty entertaining, and just talk about this sort of stuff, because I think the console guys need to be in on a conversation like this. I mean, this started out as a CS:GO analysis video, but it's interesting the way we're talking, and I think let's maybe look at doing that. I'm not promising viewers, but I think it could be an interesting dynamic having a guy like Phantom who's competed internationally in Quake. We've got Prof who comes from the Dota scene primarily, and now is worming his way into Counter-Strike rather effectively, might I add. I mean, myself is a Counter-Strike caster, former player who wasn't very good, and then we have Nick Holden, who's basically single-handedly, with Zombie Dread, basically made a bit of a mini empire out of console gaming. I mean, they were an incredible crowd at Masters last year. I mean, they weren't Masters; they were the Mag Cup, but their crowd was louder, more enthusiastic. They had an international cast. It was insane, and I mean, they get the viewership. The price to entry with a console is so much less. It's so much more accessible. I think we got to have this conversation about growing esports in South Africa. So, what do you guys think? You guys keen for that?
Definitely, dude.
Yeah, sounds like a plan.
Cool. Well, let's do that then. I think we need to move on, because also sleep would be good at some point.
True story.
So, the last thing we'll talk about is let's just talk about an international event quickly. We'll circle back there. Counter-Strike. CS Summit. They're guys who come from Dota, as I do believe, known for putting on some pretty good informal events, in, so to speak, inverted commas. In Dota, they're doing their event this weekend in North America, so of course it's going to be terrible because the American teams are there.
Well, I think the biggest storyline about this event is, can SK win? Because we had the discussion earlier tonight. SK has not looked as good as they have in the past. And certainly Stephen has not been the biggest fan of them. I haven't been the biggest fan of them in terms of the players personally. But you can't. I mean, that team was dominant last year. They upgraded in terms of skill, certainly. They haven't done anything since in terms of actual results. 2 group stage exits is not good enough for a 2-time winning, a 2 major winning team. That's not even close to acceptable. Yeah, but I mean, it's not close to acceptable. So if they fail to win at the summit, I mean, I think they're the only top 10 team there. If they fail to win at the summit, I think they have major issues to
address.
Work out.
Yeah, I'm in full agreement. But if you look at the 8 teams that are playing, they are probably the most likely to win it.
Yeah,
on paper,
like, they have to win. If they don't win, like, they have issues, and they need to fix it now.
Yeah.
Somebody's got to get fired if they don't win, basically. Maybe not a player, but definitely. I mean, it's a legitimate sport, guys. The manager should get sacked, right?
Well, it depends. Unless you're Arsenal,
Well,
then
they
you
all
can
live
be
in his
average
house,
for years.
as far
at
as
a
I
time.
know. So that's a bit of an issue.
I mean, Arsenal's like average for years, and they still seem to sign their manager every year to like a new 1-year contract. It's like,
He just opens his little black book of blackmail and goes like, "Hey, here's the compromising pictures of you with your mistress." Kind of.
Probably. It wouldn't surprise me at this point.
Oh, you guys are savages.
Okay, Phantom. I mean, let's not go into who dropped what on the Nazi scale today.
My bad.
You know, dear viewers, what you don't know is just how savage this man is behind the scenes. He's very PC on camera, but wow, he dropped some Wow, just some stuff. Some of it's come out today, but we're kind of hoping in future episodes some of the shit's gonna get real.
Thanks for bringing me along.
Cool. Well, I mean, with shit getting real, we've laid it out there. SK got to win. There's other teams there. There's NIP there. They're gonna suck. I don't know. Maybe they'll win. Who knows? But that's the storyline for that tournament. And with things getting real, I think that's the storyline for this video. So thank you, dear viewers, for joining us. Love you. Hugs and kisses, except for you, Kenny and Flexi. And then, whoa, I had to. Sorry. No, I do like you guys. I've never met you, so I mean, how would I know whether I like you or not? But anyway,
I think Extreme's busy giving them hand jobs under the table right now.
well, yeah, my arms are moving quite rapidly, so I guess there's that. Thank you, Phantom, for that illuminating bit of descriptive work there. Wristies all around. And Prophecy, thank you for joining us, laying on your sage advice, and just being embarrassed by the kinds of shit myself and Phantom say.
Well, I mean, once you've heard what Bad Robot says at events, I don't think there's anything that could scare us anymore.
Literal wristies happening all the time.
Seems like it.
Extremes gives hand jobs in the corner for a rand.
Not a rand, but yeah, a rand value.
It's not that cheap, I don't think.
I would assign a rand value to it, but not 1 rand. Anyway, guys, this has been CSGO Deeper. Thanks for joining us. X out.
Cheers.